Hi, it's Counting Sheep here, and one of my most viewed videos, oddly enough, is my landscape design video. I think I called it Landscape Design Techniques or something like that, but I haven't done one for a long time, and I don't have all of my pens here in Oregon. All I have are a few colored pencils, so I did a really rough set of entry concepts. Let's see if I can get this so you can see it. Of the same kind of just corner of a house, and doing 4 different designs for that. So I'll hold that so you can see it a little bit. And I left one only partially colored, this one here, so that I can color a little bit on the paper. This paper has texture. And I was going to talk a little bit about ASMR because a lot of people who watch these videos are landscape architects or landscape designers who are looking for coloring techniques. And they're very confused as to why I'm whispering or talking so softly. So I'm going to explain that first tonight. And some people will say, oh, it's just so creepy. Why are you talking so soft? But ASMR stands for Autosensory Meridian Response. And that has to do with things that trigger relaxation in the brain. My limited understanding of it. And it's something that they've only, in the last, I think, 10 to 12 years, started to discover was a response, and not everybody is triggered. But there are things that are triggers for people, and it can be personal attention, talking into the camera, looking directly at that person, and I do some of those. It can be sounds, such as scraping on the paper, or drawing, or tapping on things, scratching on things. It can be whispers, or talking softly. And the idea is that these videos can help people relax and fall asleep. And we're also finding, or I'm finding with a lot of my responses, that it is a tremendous anxiety reliever for people as well. If people are suffering from a lot of anxiety, why they can watch an ASMR video by their favorite ASMR artist, and a lot of times it will trigger a feeling of safety and security. So that's where it starts. And I thought I would just talk about these, and then I would just finish coloring this last one for fun. Like I said, they're kind of rough. They're super, they're just thumbnail sketches colored with a colored pencil because I don't have my markers. And I prefer to do chart pack markers and then finish off with a little bit of pencils. But all I have are the pencils. And the pencils I'm using, I just lost the ink out of, or the lead out of that one, are Prismacolor. The Prismacolor pencils. And maybe I'll sharpen one in a little bit. But the Prismacolor are my favorite because they are just the right blend of soft and hard. You need enough hardness that you can put it on without breaking the pencil lead, although this one did just fall out. But also, you want it to be soft enough that the color will lay down. And I don't want it to be so soft that it's like a pastel, but I like it to have some softness to it so that I can build it up and get some textures with it. So these designs are just with a pencil. And one thing that I learned early on was that you keep the name, like this one has it both in French and in English, and it's apple green, which is a fun color, but sharpen it from the side that doesn't have the number on it, so that if you have favorite pencils that you go through that color quickly, you can go back and order the color and use as much of that pencil as you want to until you get to that point. So there we go. And I have I think 4 green pencils, and I'll tell you the names of those colors. This one is grass green, and that's used for let's see if you can see. I've used the grass green for a lot of the ground cover, such as little areas like this around this circle, and then I'll layer a little lighter color on top of that. And my lighter green is, I already showed you the apple green, And then this one is chartreuse. And I like to put a little chartreuse color on top of the darker colors. And then the one that I used for the grass this time, I usually use the chart pack and I use a willow green, and then I'll sometimes texture it a little bit with pencil. But the pencil that I use for these is lime peel, Prismacolor lime peel. So I'll just talk about the designs a little bit and then I'll color. I just chose kind of a corner of a house with a little stoop. Let's see, am I in the camera? There we go. And I just played with a different ground plane on each. So these are not planting plans. These are just loose landscape sketches. But here's one that has grass coming out here. And this might be one if there were no fences. So that if the street is here or the sidewalk is here and there were no fences and you wanted to see into the landscape, this could either be rock if you were in a place where you wanted really very little planting, or you might do a low ground cover. Like a thyme, or you could mix ground covers to create a different plane there, different shape, different set of color and shape there, and then building up a little bit here and around the house. I think on all of them except for the one with the deck, I put shrubbery around the house because you want to soften up the edges of the house generally. This one I also added a little bit, let's see, I'm so sorry, I'm having a hard time keeping it in the camera. This one I added a little trellis on the edge too, with a little bench, so that if somebody wants to sit out and look over the garden, you're going to sit out and look at these trees, and you can look through these trees out to the street and see people walking by and that sort of thing. So that's a little trellis with ground cover, or it might be that it's vines that grow up above the fence, or excuse me, the trellis, like maybe grapes or something if you wanted to have a little something growing there for food. And then this little sketch, I played with a deck, and the deck has a barbecue that you probably would want to move away from it while you're cooking, but that's a little table with chairs right out from the house and the stoop, so that you could come straight off this first step onto this deck, and then there's 2 steps down, or these are stairs as well if you want to step out off of the deck onto the lawn. And with this idea, you're maximizing the lawn, so this lawn would come out as far as it could, and just leave like a couple feet for a vine to grow along the fence if there were a fence, say, along this bottom area. And then, let's see if I can turn that a little better, great. And then some shrubs along here, and maybe a tiny little specimen tree, or maybe just a showy shrub there. It would have to be a vestigia tree, a really narrow columnar tree if you were to do a tree, because it's a very small space. And then maybe some little climbing rose bushes here, depending on if this is a fence or not. Or it could be ground cover. And a couple of trees, so that as you enter the house, you walk through the trees along the sidewalk and straight up to the house. Okay, and then this one here is a radial design. And I kind of assumed with this one, playing with a fence again, so you'll notice that there are shrubs all along the fence line and along the house, so that it softens those walls. And then maybe a little gate entry there with a little trellis above it, and a couple of trees here. Now you'll notice these trees, I kind of tried to play with a little different style on each of these. This here is with the tree colored in, but very lightly, so you can still see the ground plane through it quite easily, but you see the actual tree color. Same with these. Didn't do a great job on those. And then this one, I just played with the trees being completely transparent, because it's a busy ground plane and you want to be able to see through the trees. So in this case, you would just do the outline of the trees, and the little cross represents where the center trunk would be planted, and very minimal lawn. And I played with this being a sunken patio, so there might be a little sitting wall around it, and then this might be sloped up and out to the street. So that would be kind of a gathering place, just a small little place to sit, and almost like a little courtyard. You could maybe put around some pots and plants if you want. This could be something that trails down over the walls, or something that is just flat, so that you can still see the ground plane around it. Okay, and then this here, you also could make this raised. So if this was just stepping down here to this main level, this might be a raised seat wall around here rather than sinking that down. It probably would make more sense with the grade. Okay, so just playing with different colors, you know, if you planted lavender or whatever. These are not literal. They're just figurative, conceptual, I should say, pictures. So there you go. And then the last one is, let's see, it's backwards, so I struggle. This one, am I pointing to the right one? Good. Give me a minute till I find it. Okay. I did entry trees, and with these, I colored the tree in, but again, very lightly, so that you can see what's under it, but I didn't color the plants under it, whereas a lot of times you will color the plants under it, as with these. But this one, I tried to do a light texture of that, and I did a light chartreuse green, and then into the apple green, and then just up from the edge. You leave the edge because the shadow actually hits the back side here, and I do my darkest color there. So that would have been it wasn't evergreen, I can't remember, whatever I said that darkest green was. It was grass green here. And then I'm going to just color these, and this might again be some kind of vine that goes up along the fence, and some ground cover here, and then I'm going to just color in a few shrubs, and hopefully that will be relaxing for you. And maybe there's some ideas. This, I think, tends to be more of what you see in typical landscape design, where they do, one of my friends in college used to call it the amoeba grass design, but typically you call it organic design. This is also more organic design, and then this is more radial. You could also say that was a little architectonic, because there's some features that are symmetrical and very specifically set off of certain angles, you know, off the corner and that sort of thing. So, and then that one's kind of a mix, because the decking is more architectural. It is more angular is what I'm trying to say, and the sidewalk, but then we rounded the edges of the grass. You know, it's hard to mow grass if it's done in angles, even though it would look cool to have it in angles with this design, but typically that's really tough to mow, as most of you know, an angle. All right, so here we go. I am going to just play with some colors. Let's see. I'm going to make this down here kind of a, let me find my lighter green. I'm going to go with a light green here. I wonder if you can see what I'm doing. I think I'm covering it. Maybe I'll color this direction. Great. And then you could make a choice here where there's ground cover under this shrub. I could color that the same, or I say no, I want my tree, it's above it, to take priority there. All right, and I'm going to put some, well, let's see, I've got orange already there. Let's put some lavender on this one, and maybe a little bit of pink. So the lavender that I have is lilac. And I'm just going to do a little bit of lilac on this top edge here. Let's see if I can do that so you can see it. I maybe should have set the camera on the other side. So there's lilac on that edge. And then I want a little darker since my shadow is on the side. And normally I would do a marker to create shadow for the trees. Maybe I can play with pencil for that, I don't know. But I'm going to put a little bit of a darker green on the bottom edge of this little shrubby tree, so that it gives it a little bump pop up. Okay, and then I think I will do something, I'm going to keep it a little more, I think I'll put blues in there in a little bit, but here I think I will do kind of this golden yellow, and it is called Yellow Ochre. So I'm going to put on a little bit of Yellow Ochre and color that. I don't know if you can hear those sounds. The pencil. And then I kind of did already put the orange down here, so I'm going to try and put a different color. I've got this poppy. It might be too bright, but I'm going to put poppy down on the bottom edge of this one. And I might have to do something else to distinguish them from these others because they're kind of similar. So you can see how just on the bottom edge I just scribble a little bit of another color to make it look like it's shadowed on that side. And I think instead what I'm going to do is put a little something on the bottom of these to make them different. So I'm going to do chocolate, the color chocolate. And again, these are Prismacolor pencils. And I'm just going to do a little, I don't know if you can even see that in the camera, but I just did a little wiggle along those of chocolate. Okay, now I'm not going to color the shrubs under the tree, but I'm going to color the parts that are poking out. So I'm going to go with, I've got quite a bit of lavender on these. I still think I will do lavender here along this edge of the house. So let me make sure I've got that in view of the camera. And I'm going to do a double row of the lavender. Just get the tips of those where they poke out from the tree. So there's lavender, and then I want to get this bottom edge, and I could either choose to do a green, well, I could choose anything I wanted, but I'm going to just take the lavender again and build it up a little bit along that edge to shadow it. And sometimes, you know, everybody has different preferences, so sometimes people will color the building in, and so that it doesn't, you know, isn't a blank space, but I like to leave it blank so that my eye isn't going at all to the building. If I were doing a big park design where there were things on there like pavilions and restrooms where we needed to see the placement of those things, and they were just as important as a site layout or site design as the planting, loose planting would be, then I would color those in. I'm having trouble talking tonight for some reason. Okay, I think instead of blue, I'm going to bring a little more pink in. I've got some pink on the one over here. So I'm going to go with this. Let's see, I've got magenta and I've got this hot pink. So I think what I'll do is start with, this one's peach, light peach. And I'm going to take this light peach. Oops, I bumped my mic. Here we go. And I'm going to take the light peach and go along these little kind of squiggly ones. Okay. And then I'm going to take the little more, well, let's see, this one's called just rose. So I'm going to take this rose-colored pencil and run it along the edge of these. All right. And so now you can start to see a little bit of color coming through, and I think I'm going to put a little bit of rose on the edge of this tree too to kind of tie it in. So hopefully you can see that. And then I'll take a little bit of this, which is magenta, and I'm going to bring the magenta along this edge here. And yeah, I like that. And I might bring a little magenta also just into these shrubs to kind of, give them a little bit of a tie-in as well. All right. So if I wanted, I could also bring some magenta into this tree to kind of make it look like a sunset. You know, sometimes if you bring a little pink on that edge, I'll do it just so you can see it. It's nice because it kind of makes it look like the sun is hitting it. All right, so here we go. All 4 designs, I'll just kind of run them by you again. That's the one we just played with. Oops, I'm really struggling for some reason. All right, then I want to go this way. The deck. So, if this were for a client, the idea would be at this stage that it's just super loose so that they can look at all these and kind of play around with imagining. These are in plan view. So I say just kind of pretend you're walking into the design and that you're standing there looking at things. And sometimes I'll draw something in elevation, means you're looking straight at it. And if they're having a hard time seeing something, why, you might do a real quick thumbnail sketch of this little entry or something with 2 climbing rose bushes by it, or 2 upright columnar bushes or something, just so people can get an idea. And then they might say, oh, I really liked the shapes of this one, but I really want to have this trellis from the one here, and I'm wondering if you can work that in. Let me see if I'm even in the camera again. So that's kind of how it works. And then you say, okay, well, or they might say, I want the barbecue, but can we do it with a radial design? And I would say that's going to be harder. But anyway, you play with it in that way, and then you start to kind of combine them, and usually I'll come up with then one more design that combines what they want, and then there'll be a final document that, you know, it might be tweaked a little from that final design. And everybody works different. And it depends on what the house size is or the yard size is. I might just bring one design or bring 2 designs, and you know, that's often what I do. If it's a full-blown design, I just will do a couple, and then they say, oh, I would love to have this from this one and this from this one, and then I combine them into the final drawing. All right, just for fun, I will sharpen my pencil, one of my pencils. See if that is relaxing. And I'm going to sharpen my apple green. And then maybe I'll tap on some of the pencils. So this is the apple green. Is just barely starting to show. Generally, you'll find that there's pencils. Probably any of you have worked with any kind of pencils have noticed this, but the lead, you'll find one that breaks a lot, one that has a softer lead in it. And this is obviously going to be the one, the green one. It just keeps breaking, even if I don't have a whole lot of lead showing there. So that's a bummer, because then you go through those pencils a lot more. Okay, there's that. And then I'll maybe just play with tapping some pencils. And my blue colors that I used were blue slate. And the other blue is called cloud blue. So I like to usually have a darker and lighter of each color, a light blue, light purple, dark purple, pinks, so that I can play with getting the back edge. And you can kind of see, like with this one, see if I get that in there, with the radial one, these along here have the light pink on the upper side, and then on the bottom side where the shadow might be, they have a darker pink. And, oh yeah, I was going to show you about shadowing. Let's see, I just don't have a dark enough pencil for that. I think it's going to look funny, but I would normally take the pencil and take the bottom edge here and shadow that. So, but this pencil just is not going to be dark enough, so it's going to make it look a little muddy, unfortunately. So I'll have to go back over this with something a little heavier. I need to get a darker pencil that I can shadow with, but you can get the idea here with the, there we go, with the shadows. And then it starts to make it look like that tree is raised above the ground, but without it, it's a little difficult. All right, that's all. Oh yeah, I'm going to tap on my pencils and then we'll call it a night. Thanks for stopping by. I like that sound for some reason, just the pencils tapping against each other.